Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kathy from Brainler Books in South Bend. I want to read you the code of conduct and talk about our two authors we have today, Abiola Bello and Jennifer Niven. They're going to talk about Abiola's new book, Love in Winter Wonderland. So I'm excited about this book. As soon as we read it, we reached out to Instagram to Abiola saying, how can we do some kind of event with you? So this is just a dream come true for me, as well as you, Abiola. See, we're
Yes,
super
it
excited about this. Super excited. All right. And Jennifer, you may not remember, but a million years ago when BEA was in Chicago, we actually met. And I have a picture of me and you from BEA in Chicago.
I
Like that
do.
was it was the only time it was ever in Chicago, too. That
It
it
was
was
it was
phenomenal.
such perfect timing, and I do remember. I just yes.
Yay. So two of my favorite people. So I'm super excited about today. All right. So we aim to develop empathy and build a stronger community centered around the discussion of inclusive literature. Our goal is to create an environment where traditionally marginalized voices feel welcome to participate, speak up, ask questions, and engage in conversation. This requires a harassment free and inclusive environment that recognizes the inherent worth of every participant. We invite all those who participate to help us create safe and positive experiences for everyone. All right, so Abiola Bello. Abiola is a British Nigerian author from London, England. She is the best selling, award winning author of the children's series, Emily Knight and I Am, and contributed to the Very Merry Murder Club, which we have, by the way, anthology. Love in Winter Wonderland is her debut YA. Abiola has won London's Big Read 2019. That's fantastic. Was a
hey,
finalist for the People's Book Prize Best Children's Book and was nominated for the Yoto Carnegie Award. Fantastic, man. That's
thank
awesome.
you.
I already have your second book on order, FYI.
Oh, thank you.
We're ready. All right, Jennifer Niven. Jennifer is the number one best-selling time. Shouldn't like that never happened. Jennifer Niven is the number one New York Times best-selling author of All the Bright Places, which I love. Holding Up the Universe, Breathless, and with David Levithan, Take Me With You When You Go, as well as the popular Velva Jean series and nonfiction for adults. I have to find that as well. We have most of your stuff. I don't have that one. I have to get your nonfiction next.
Oh, thank you.
Her books have been translated into over 75 languages and have won literary awards around the world. To All the Bright Places film starring Elle Fanning, Justice Smith, Luke Wilson, and Keegan Michael Key is currently streaming on Netflix. The script by Jennifer and Liz Hanna from The Post. When she isn't working on multiple book and TV projects, Jennifer also oversees Germ, a literary web magazine for high school age and beyond. And she divides her time between coastal Georgia and Paris. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and just listen to the conversation between her and Abiola. If you have any questions, please make sure you drop them in the chat. All right, Jennifer.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful to everyone who's here. And we're just so happy you're here. And I'm so excited because I absolutely love this book. And I actually have the UK cover. I got it the minute it came out there. That's right. And now it's got this gorgeous US cover. And I'm so thrilled and excited to be here with you, Abiola, and
Thank
to finally
you.
get to meet you like this.
Yes, this is a dream come true for me. I really try not to fangirl too much and act cool, but like
Oh my
your
gosh.
book, Holding Up the Universe is one of my favorite books ever, and
Thank
I'm
you.
obsessed with it. So when Simon Schuster UK were like, oh, what authors do you want us to give the book out to? This is our list. And I was like, look, guys, she's probably going to say no, but could you send this to Jennifer Niven? They were like, yeah, okay, we'll send it. I just thought, I'm putting it out there. She's not going to read it, but, you know, shoot my shot. So when you came out with a quote, I literally was like, oh my God,
Oh
and I
my
couldn't breathe. Could not
You're
breathe.
you're so lovely. And I mean, it has been, as you know, like I am such a huge fan. Such a huge fan. You have a fan for life in me. And I'm just so excited to get to talk more with you today and to talk and have more people discover this amazing book and your amazing work because this isn't your first book. It's your first YA.
It's my
Um,
first YA.
so I would love to hear a little bit about your writing journey, if you don't mind telling us. Like, have you always written all your life?
Yeah, I actually started writing when I was 8 years old, just for fun. I used to be obsessed with a book series called The Babysitters Club, which is on Netflix now. So I'd make my own version of like my friends. We would be the babysitters and we'd have our own little adventures. And it was just fun. There was no depth to it. I never thought I'd be an author at all. And then in year 7, so when I was about 11 years old in secondary school, my English teacher made us do a creative writing exercise. And she pulled me aside and she said, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And I was like, "I don't know. I think I want to be like a lawyer or like a tennis player." My mum's obsessed with tennis. I'm not that great at tennis. She's like tennis. And then she was like, "Why don't you be an author?" And I was like, Is that a real job?" And she said, "Yeah, like people pay you to write books." And I was like, "What?" I didn't even realize that the books I read, they get paid for it. I don't really know how I thought it worked, if I'm honest. So I went home and I told my parents, my very Nigerian parents, and they were very much like, "Who told you this? Who put this stupid idea in your head?" And then from then on, I was like, I'm gonna be an author. But my journey was quite difficult because I didn't know anyone in publishing. I was a dancer and everyone I knew was in like the dance scene, and no one really read books, to be honest with you, in the dance scene either. And I went to university to study creative writing because I thought that'd be a good place for me to work on my craft. And they said we'd meet agents. And I thought, okay, I'll get myself situated here. And that didn't really work out. So I ended up dropping out of there. And I remember being like, I'm going to figure this out. So I went to like the library, to the bookshop. I got every book I could think of publishing, how to publish for dummies, how to write all those books. And I read all of them and I was like, I'm going to figure this out. So yeah, it was quite tough. Getting an agent was really difficult for me. Then when I got an agent, we got offered this book deal with a publishing house I love. And then they made everyone redundant. And then my book got dropped. And that was really like the only offer I know that came through for my Emily Knight series. Yeah, they were the only ones I think open to publishing about a Black superhero, which wasn't really in 2012. No one was doing that. So then I ended up self-publishing that book. So it's been like a really, really interesting journey. And then I finally, I set up my own publishing house. Then we published Emily Knight under that. So that went really well for the book. And then I got my new agent in 2020. And yeah, here we are. So it's been a journey.
It's been, but I love all the determination. Like you were like, I am going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And you did.
Got there in the end. We thank God. But yeah, I was literally like, this has to, because you know when you like tell everyone I'm gonna be an author, you'll fight with your parents about it. And I was like, I can't give up now. Like I'm not gonna prove him right, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I was like, I need to figure this out in some way. So I'm grateful that it all worked out.
I'm very grateful too. And I know your readers are. And obviously you started your career in writing for children, but how did the idea for Love in Winter Wonderland come about? Like where did this come from, this gem?
Well, this came about in a weird way. So when I got signed to my agent in 2020, I'd written my first YA book, not Wonderland, it was a different book. And she signed me on that book. So that book went on submission and we got really interesting feedback, some good, some bad. There wasn't an overall bad or an overall good. It was a big mixture. So we both just like, oh, okay, that didn't work out too great. So I thought, you know what? I don't think I can write YA. I love to read it, but maybe I should just stick with my kids and I'm fine with that. So then I wrote another middle grade book and my agent was like, we could do better. And I was like, I don't have better. I can't do better than this. So then she said to me, one of the editors who passed on the book, one of the notes she said was, if Abiola writes a romance, I would love to read it. And me and my sensitivity was like, what kind of stupid comment is that? This wasn't even a romance. I was just so irritated. No one brought the book. So my agent brought it back to her and she said, I think you should write a romance. And I was like, I can't write a romance. And she was like, why not? And I said, I don't know. I don't think I can. And by this point, I had tried to write a YA. The feedback was crazy, some of it. And I was like, I don't know if I have that in me to write that. And she was like, there is a massive lack of Black love stories in the UK, especially at Christmas. She was like, can you name a book? and I couldn't. She was like, why don't you write that book? And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can write this book. Because she was like, come up with an idea and then let's talk about it. So I said, okay. So I came up with this idea, and it came really quickly to me, the idea of Trey Anderson and his bookshop in Hackney, which is where I live and I've been brought up. And, you know, they were gonna get into this crisis, and it had to be solved by Christmas time. And it came really quickly. And she was like, this is so good. She was like, okay, so what about Ariel? And I was like, wait, do you think it should be a dual POV? And she was like, oh, wasn't you going to do that? And I was like, well, no, I've never done that either. I don't know about that. So then I had to think about Ariel's story. So I was like, oh, what can she do? I don't know. So I was like, maybe it's
first. I didn't know. Oh, that's amazing.
That's how Ariel came about. And then she was like, okay, write it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started to write this book, and it came about, like, the initial idea came about really quickly. I faced challenges with it when my dad passed. That then became really challenging to write the book. But the few chapters I wrote before, thank you. The few chapters I wrote before he passed, I felt came really, really easy, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this.
It's so amazing, and I just say again, I'm so sorry about your dad, and I understand because my mother died 4 months before All the Great Places came out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was, I finished writing, but I hadn't finished editing, and it was just, you know, it's
hard.
terrible. It does. It sucks. But I think he would be so immensely proud. I'm sure he was proud of you anyway, but I'm sure he would love this book. Because
he would never have read it, bless him, but you know, he would have showed it off to his work friends at least, so I'll take that.
Well, and one of the many things I love about it, and it's so interesting that you say that you started with Trey and then Ariel's point of view came in after, but I love the headings of each chapter. You have an excerpt from their playlist.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I was just curious, you know, how that idea came about. And then did you listen to these songs while you were writing the book?
Do you know what? Okay, so I'm a playlist girl. I make playlists for everything. So when I used to dance and I would get sent like the soundtracks for the performance we were going to do, I would put them in different playlists. So I knew where to find them quickly. And then when I started teaching dance to kids, I would have a playlist just of clean music. So it'd be easier to navigate. So I've always had playlists since I got an iPod at 16. So I still do playlists to this day. And I always have music in my books because of the dance background, but I also like to write to music a lot as well. So then my agent, who I do think is like the best woman of all time, she was like, how do you make your headings playlist? And I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be so cool. And I was like, why didn't I do Black Christmas songs? Why don't I find Black artists who Christmas songs? And this is why I set myself up a little bit, because I don't know that many Christmas songs, and some of the songs I do know that I thought were by a Black person wasn't. So then I was like, oh, where are these songs? So I literally had to go through this like rabbit hole to find Black Christmas. And I had to listen to them and be like, would a 17-year-old boy like this song? Would this person like? And anytime Simon Schuster were like, hey, can we add an extra chapter? I'd be like, oh, I've got to find another song. So the song became a little bit irritating, if I'm honest. That was probably the hardest part of the book, was actually the songs. But I'm really happy with them. I did listen to all the songs, and I did think about, would my character love this song, and would this be on their playlist? And as soon as I found a Prince song, a Christmas song by Prince, I was like, okay,
yes.
So, yeah.
Well, and speaking of the points of view, so Trey came first, which is really interesting to me because to me, as a reader, the dual points of view feel very seamless. And there's, many times I'll read a book, and if there's more than one point of view, sometimes it feels like one of the points of view is stronger or more vivid. And I felt here, like, first of all, they were each very distinct from the other, and I didn't have any trouble recognizing the voices, which I loved. And then, and I just I knew without even looking at the headings, after, I didn't have to go back and check, like, wait, whose playlist? I mean, not whose playlist.
Okay.
Whose chapter am I in it? I didn't have to do that. But I'm just curious, when you did write Ariel, did you find it more challenging than writing Trey? It sounds like Trey kind of came out in a way.
Yeah. Which is weird because I've never written a main character of a guy before.
Yeah.
I don't know why Trey came first. Maybe I was trying to be different. I don't know what I was trying to do, but I don't know why Trey came first. But with Ariel, yeah, when I started thinking about, okay, what's Ariel's story? If I'm honest, I don't recall if I had done it that Ariel's going through grief before I went through grief. I'm not sure if I'm on. I can't remember, but I really wanted Ariel to be kind of like just not your typical girl. Like she's kind of gone through this weight issue. She's now dealing with grief. She's this artist and she really wants to find her voice, but celebrate her dad. She's got different complexities than Trey does. And I think when it came to the grief parts of it, you know, because I was going through it when I started writing the book again, it was easy to put that in and to know how Ariel felt because that's how I was feeling. Well, she was feeling like a percentage of what I was feeling, but you know, it was easy to understand that. And I think I don't know if I would have been able to have done Ariel like how I did if I didn't go through the grief, because I was really writing in my raw stages and stuff. And I think me and Ariel on a similar journey because I was almost trying to find my writing voice again because I had really bad writer's block for like, I don't know, like 3 months. And I was trying to get back into it and I was struggling. And she was here kind of like, you know, trying to create this piece. I was going to get her into this prestigious art school and struggling with that. So I think me and Ariel kind of related in that way. But yeah, she's a sweet girl. And I think she balances out Trey because I think Trey's quite, you know, I think like I do love Trey, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like Trey, he's obviously in this situation where he's kind of in between two girls. And Trey is a little bit self-centered in the beginning, and as he goes on he starts to understand how important family is, how kind of he's been so focused on himself and what he wants to do, he didn't even notice that his family business was going down the drain. So Trey kind of goes on a different journey of self-discovery than Ariel. Now he's looking at his girlfriend like, you're kind of selfish. Like, you know, Blair's always been selfish. You know, we love Blair for just being Blair, but he's like, he almost just realizes like, wow, you're really selfish. So you know, they go on these different journeys, and I think they complement each other in different ways.
I think so too. And you know, without any spoilers, I am, you know how much I love the romance in this book. It just makes me swoon. So if you ever had any doubt, which I hope you don't now, that you can write a romance.
Thank you.
Write a romance. Oh my God. And I just wonder, you know, because it was your first young adult book, what was it? Were there any challenges writing a romance for young adults? And yeah, or is, you know, or tell us about what you loved most about writing the romance, if that's easy.
Yeah. Do you know what? I read a lot of YA rom-com. It's probably my favorite genre. So I don't know why I told myself I couldn't write it. The hardest bit I found was because I was grieving, I didn't feel anything positive. So I have no idea how this book came out as joyous as it did. I couldn't ever tell you that. But what helped me write it was I listened to so many love songs. I listened to so many love songs. And I was trying to like listen to the words and be like, how does this make me feel, and put that on there. I kept listening on repeat to Oh Holy Night, the Mariah Carey version, because I think it's such a beautiful song. And when I'd listen to that, I would feel some type of joy. It was the only thing that kind of made me feel a bit of joy in that time. So I would listen to that on repeat and write as I was listening to that song. And one thing I remember stressing about was, because my agent was like to me, because basically I didn't start with a trope. I didn't pick like, you know, enemies to lovers. I didn't pick any of that. I wasn't in a frame of mind to pick any of that stuff, to be fair. So I know I've seen some reviews, people saying, I don't feel like it's enemies to lovers. Like it, you know, come on guys, it is what it is. They're not friends, okay? And a tip my agent said to me, she said, you need to create characters that people fall in love with. And I was like, how do I do that? Like, how do I create a guy that people fall in love with? So I remember thinking, okay, what books have I read? And I've been like, oh, that character is real. I'd love to meet them. So it was 2 books. So one was yours. It was Jack in Holding
Oh,
Up the Universe.
thank
And the
you.
other one was Carter in Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry by Joe Goffney. And so I had to think about, why do I like these 2 characters so much? So I remember I reread Holding Up the Universe, and I was like, hey, what is it about Jack that I love so much? And I was like, what I loved about Jack was that he was cool. He had this swag. He was so like, he seemed so together, but underneath the surface, he was so broken. And there was a lot going on that no one understood. And he could only connect to one person who understood that. And I was like, that's what I loved. I loved that he, on the exterior, was like this cool guy that everyone would be like, oh, Jack, you know, but he had so much depth. So I was like, how do I create that with Trey? How do I make him someone that on the surface he seems like this cool, calm guy, and underneath that there's some vulnerability? But I think with Trey, it kind of gathers, like his vulnerability kind of grows, because as he evaluates his relationships all around, he starts to kind of look at his friends a bit differently, his girlfriend a bit differently, and he evaluates things. And then you start seeing that he starts to kind of understand who he is as a person. Where I feel like at the beginning, he's a little bit like, he just wants to go to a party. He doesn't really care what's going on. And then as it goes on, you start to see. And then even with Ariel, he starts to notice the way his friends treat Ariel, the way his girlfriend talks to her, and he sticks up for her, and things he probably wouldn't have done before. Because when he first meets Ariel, all he thinks about is the fact she's got nice legs and she's got a drink on me, and there's no depth in it. And as it goes on, he starts to defend her and really see her. So yeah, I wanted to go on that with Trey. So Trey goes on an interesting journey. So I think Trey's that person where I don't think he's the perfect boyfriend or the perfect guy, but I think he's a boy that grows, and we love it. We love a growth in a man. So
Yes. Oh my God. And he's like, Trey is one of my all-time favorite YA characters.
oh,
I love Ariel too, because she's amazing. But I totally swooned over Trey. He's so dreamy. And the fact that he, that he comes from this bookstore just
yeah.
makes it all the more, amazing. And
I wanted a hot bookstore guy, because I feel like when things are in a bookstore, people make them like geeky or whatever. And I'm like, no, I want a really sexy guy who can sing, who works at a book, and who knows his books. I mean, that's perfect for me. That's all I want.
That is perfect. One of my favorite things about the book, and I'm going to say this a lot, like one of my favorite things about the book is the sense of friendship and community that surrounds the characters for the most part. And I just, I wanted to ask you, like, why you felt that was important to include, and when you were Trey and Ariel's age, did you have that same sense of community around you?
Yeah, I think because so when I initially came up with the idea, and I was like, let's do it in a bookshop. So I run a small independent publishing house, and I know how hard it is to run a small business in publishing. It is very difficult. And I wanted a Black-owned business. I thought, okay, let's just do a bookshop. There's a bookshop near me that I kind of based Wonderland on, like the location, everything like that. And I thought, okay, let's give it that. And I feel like, in Hackney, where I live, my borough, I feel like it kind of can get a bit of a bad rep sometimes. And I feel like they don't really say things that are positive about it. And there are lots of young people here doing great things in Hackney. And there is a massive community here. And I don't feel that's highlighted a lot. And I kind of was like, if I'm going to write this romance at Christmas, which I was like, God, I don't want it to be cheesy. But if I want to write it, I want it to be real, and I don't want it to be about race or anything like that. I don't want to struggle because they're Black. I want to struggle because they're just a small business and they're just not getting that community support that they should be getting. They're not connecting as well as they should. And when I was a teenager, I used to dance, and I grew up dancing in a youth centre near my school, and it was a massive community there. And then through that, when I joined like dance crews and companies, I then was in the dance community, which was an amazing community to be part of as well. So I think I've always had that community feel for as long as I can remember. So I just wanted to really show that in the book that really getting integrating your community is really important, and supporting local businesses can make or break them. So we need to do better with that.
Absolutely. And you just, by talking about the fact that there was a bookstore, there is a bookstore that kind of inspired Wonderland. I was going to ask you if there is a real life Wonderland that we can visit.
There is a Wonderland bookshop, actually. Oh, where is it? It's not in London though, but she had another name for it. And before my book came out, she changed it to Wonderland. And I was like, oh my God. So she brought loads of copies of the book. So I was like, Wonderland, which is cute. But it's not in London though. But yeah, but over here, we don't have that many Black-owned bookshops. We have very few. But I just wanted to kind of celebrate the ones that we do have. And just the indie bookshops in general. Like, it's really hard to have a business in publishing, and buying that one book from them and not from, a big chain makes a massive difference. So if this book can make someone go out to an indie and go buy a book, I feel like I've done something great, which is what I kind of do.
Well, I shop indie books. I try to do that completely consistently and always support indie booksellers, but this book made me want to even more.
Yes, good for Trey. Good.
If I wasn't doing it before, I would be doing it now because of Trey. So we've touched a little bit on grief and some of the more serious issues that you write about in the book. One of the many things I love about this book is the tone of it. And tone is it's so tricky. It can be such a fine line, and it's so easy to go, too far or not enough. And I feel like, you tackle these issues with enormous sensitivity and understanding. And now I can understand, even more so why that is. But you also infuse the reader with hope and joy. And, it's a really difficult line to walk, but you did it so beautifully. And I can only imagine, as you were writing, especially with your dad, the loss of your dad, how challenging that could be. But I'd love to hear a little bit about, was that a conscious choice for you to make sure the joy and the hope were in there as well? Or did the tone just kind of, come naturally? Because you're magic.
I think I'm magic, because do you know what? I think it honestly came because I really wasn't joyful or hopeful at all. So I don't know how it happened, if I'm honest. I felt like during that time of writing this book, I was just writing for a deadline, and I just kind of wanted to be left alone. So I was like, let me just get it done, then everyone can leave me alone. So I didn't really feel joyous about the book until maybe when I got the deal. I felt joyous in that moment, but it probably wasn't until, if I'm honest, maybe really this year, that I kind of look at the book and go, wow, you did a good job with that. It's taken me quite a long time to connect with the book because of just the time I wrote it, which is a bit sad because I am proud of the book. I think it just has too many emotions around it for me. But Christmas is a lovely time, and Christmas is a beautiful time. So I think that helped. And then romance as well, and what I love about rom-coms, I like the structure of it. Like, two people meet, stuff's going to happen, but they're going to end up together. And it does end on a really happy note. Most of the time it ends on a happy note. So I think because of that and the romance part of it, that did bring the joyousness in it. But I don't think it was conscious, because with Ariel, because Ariel's grief was like a percentage of how I felt, I didn't really think Ariel's grief came out. So I've had people message me and say, oh my gosh, I cried when Ariel was talking about her dad. And I was like, did you? Because to me, it feels really small. But that's because I'm just comparing to how I felt. So I'm glad that came across in there, because I wasn't sure if it did come across in there. And one of the things actually which shocked me about the book was, so me and my agent edited the book. I think we did like 2 rounds of edits. Then it went on submission, and it was like brought within a week. And we did a very light edit with Simon and Schuster. They didn't really change much of it, and I was really surprised that somehow I captured the things I was meant to, because I wasn't happy, because I don't know how I made this. I don't know. Only God knows. But I'm glad it worked. I'm glad that this came out of something awful, something beautiful came out of it. So I'll take that.
Definitely. And you know, I definitely cried. I mean,
Oh.
I am one of those readers who shed many tears over this book, and I've actually read it 3 times. So,
oh my gosh,
yes,
Jennifer never read my book 3 times.
It is so good. It is so good. Are there other kind of serious issues that you'd like to to tackle in future books, or is that something, or is that not how you approach the next book? Do you write what's in your heart? I think one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do you find your ideas, and where do they come from? And I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, and that's a hard thing to answer because they can come from everywhere.
Yeah, they do come from everywhere, and they also come from a place of, I feel like America's a bit more ahead of us than in the UK in terms of representation. And I think over here there's lots of holes that I think need to be filled in book themes, and lots of places where I think there's not enough content with Black people in them in a positive space. So I think I'm always kind of looking at things like that, where I'm like, oh, I haven't seen much of that. Let me write that. I kind of am that kind of writer. And just something that I think would be fun and enjoyable to write. Like now I'm obsessed with writing romance. So like, I will keep writing them as long as the ideas come. But yeah, I think I'm that kind of author. And in terms of the themes, I mean, like, because I can't remember with Ariel what came first, like if her grief came before my grief, I don't remember, if I'm honest. But with Ariel especially, I wasn't trying to make her grief as central in the book as what it was. I don't feel like I was trying to do that. I think I wanted to kind of be like, she's kind of gone through this journey, now here she is. That's kind of what I wanted with Ariel. But actually her grief did travel throughout the book, and her dad was very much her driving force, which wasn't planned. It did happen. And then with Trey, I always want him to kind of be like a singer and be anxious, because I wanted that kind of juxtaposition of this really popular, gorgeous guy who is very scared to do something that he can actually do naturally. And I thought that was quite funny. And that took a while for me to get that with Trey, because I remember, I think the first edit, it wasn't super clear that he was anxious, and I had to kind of drive it up a bit more with that. But yeah, I think it just happens. Like with my new book, there's a lot about toxic love, which wasn't the plan. But as I kind of was writing, I was just like, oh, it's a bit toxic, isn't it? So it kind of developed. And then I think after a while, when you write your characters, you start to be like, oh, they are kind of like this, and let's kind of lean into this more, and let's not fight this because we're not perfect people. And I think when we write characters, sometimes you can fall into a pattern of wanting to be kind of like really perfect, and they're not, and they're going to do things that maybe a reader might not like, but it's normal. Right. Like I remember someone on TikTok said how she didn't like that Trey did. I don't want to give spoilers, sorry, but she didn't like that Trey didn't believe a scenario that happened with Eric's girlfriend. And I was like, well, why? Because why would you not believe your girlfriend? Because then that now makes you question yourself and your choices. So you're naturally going to want to believe the best in your partner. I would assume you would want to. So I think sometimes readers maybe want something perfect, and it's like, but we're not perfect, and he should want to defend his girlfriend over this other girl. And when he realizes that, he should acknowledge that and take acceptance for it. So yeah, I think sometimes we need to remember that characters in books should also be flawed as well. But what we want to see, God willing, is a journey. And we want to see that in the end, they've grown, and we've seen their growth, and they haven't stayed in this place.
Exactly. I mean, that's just, I love reading about characters who feel very human, because I'm very human. And
exactly.
And I want to be able to relate to someone who does that. But, also hopefully, as you say, we, the characters and us as people, we just grow and evolve and, you know, keep growing. And that's one of the things I love about Trey, is that ability to do that. You know, he's a very different Trey from the beginning than
He is. He goes on this journey. We love that for Trey. And
oh yeah,
by the end of it, he's, you know, he's fully a bit more of a man, I feel like.
yes.
And you know, you wanna hope that he can go on this journey and continue to be a great person and not go back to this. Well, and you know, also just with the choice he makes, even like with the choice of girls, the choice of friends, it changes. And that's what you want to see. And as people, I mean, as a teenager, that happened to me. My friendship groups changed as I grew, and I realized this isn't super positive. Let's make better choices and stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. And is there, you know, if there's, I don't know, if one particular feeling or a message or something that you want readers to walk away from after reading the book, you know, what do you want them to feel when they walk away from reading?
I want them to feel love. I just want them to, because this book is like, I've always described it as like a love letter. It's like a love letter to so many things, like to London, to books, to small businesses, to Black love, to my dad. Like, it's a love letter to loads of things. And I think I just want people to read and feel some type of love, whether you love Trey or you love Ariel or you love Bugs or you love the scenery or whatever it is, or the Twilight references, like whatever it is. I just want you to feel love, because we need more of that in the world. And I think one of the things I wanted to achieve with the book was I just wanted people to just love. And that's all I wanted from it. And it's not a book that tackles anything. It tackles depth, like the grief and anxiety, but nothing that I think is you know, not the books I feel like sometimes is pushed, especially over here, like slavery and like racial discrimination. Like, it's not that. Like, that's not the essence of it. There is not really any much reference to that, apart from maybe the beginning with the lady buying the books. And even then, Trey's like, I don't think you're racist. I think you're just a cheap person. You know, like, it's like, we're not trying to make it a racial issue. It really is just about small businesses and about these communities coming together to fight for something. And that really was triggered from the Black Lives Matter movement, because that was the first time I felt like not just small businesses, but especially Black businesses, I felt like they asked for help. And I remember like Beyonce did this list of like Black owned businesses, and there was like 2 UK stores on this list, and she gave it like a shout out and stuff. And I remember that always stayed with me. So that's why when I put like the whole Rihanna thing, I remember someone was like, Rihanna would never do that. I said, she would, first of all, number one. And Beyonce did it, so I think Rihanna can do it too. So yeah, I just want people to take away from it just like love and just Christmas and just good vibes, despite the darkness and some bits. It's overall just a good vibe book.
Oh, you definitely, and as I said, you know, I cried, but I also cried with happiness too. So it was just definitely, and you definitely walk away with your heart filled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So your next young adult novel, Only for the Holidays?
Only for the holidays.
Only for the
I
holidays.
have it here.
Oh, you do? Oh, it's gorgeous.
But it's so cute. They're so like sexy. I'm like,
it is. It's beautiful. And that's out October 12th. Is that right?
Yes, very, very soon. It's out in the UK, October 12th. So that's exciting.
Could you just tell us a little bit about it? A little
bit
about?
Do you know what? This book was so fun to write. I'm glad I got another shot at doing a romance and a Christmas in a better headspace, because I had lots of fun writing this book. And it if anything, it was too big. S&S were like, we need to cut it down. I was like, no, everything is perfect. We're not cutting it down, but we had to quite a bit. I just wouldn't stop writing. But it's essentially about it's the fake dating trope, and it's like the typical kind of country boy, city girl situation. So my country boy is called Quincy Parker, and he lives in a really small little town. They're like the only Black family. They own these luxurious homes. I always want to show Black people in as much of a positive light as possible. And they have been accepted to put on the winter ball, which happens annually, and each year family has to host it, and it's their year to host it. The only Black family to ever host this ball, and they're all very excited about it. But it's very old fashioned, like in terms of like the way you have to dress. You need like a date, and Quincy and his girlfriend have broken up in this very small town, so everyone's talking about it, and he needs a date. And then you've got Tia Shalanke, who is my little Nigerian firecracker, and she lives in South London, and she is with her boyfriend, who she's very much in love with, and he's sort of like not really so much in love with her, and he decides to ask her for space via text message.
Oh God!
As she's mid helping him swag his birthday party, and she's very distressed about it because Tia's a little bit dramatic, and her mum and her family, they've gone through this really hard time. Her mum like lost her job. They had to move to like this small house, and her mum's now got this new job. She had to celebrate. We're going to go on holiday to this luxurious home. And Tia's like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. My boyfriend asked for space and I'm not giving him space. So they end up at Quincy Parker's family home, which is where they stay. And Tia and Quincy are very different. They're both very attracted to each other, but they're also like, I don't even know what we would talk about. Like, cute, and that's as far as it goes. And they decide to fake date because they both need something from each other. And it's very funny. And Tia is very me in terms of, I do not like the countryside. I'm scared of horses. I just don't like so many things about it. And Tia is very much vocal about everything like that. So yeah, it's fun and it's very cute.
It sounds amazing. And
I think Quincy is the perfect boy. I think if you're going to fall in love with a boy, I feel like Quincy is that one you're probably going to fall in love with because he's such a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to explore the whole nice guy finished last aspect of it, and he's so nice. Tia is a bit, but Quincy is very lovely. So.
But she sounds like I can't wait to read her.
She's a funny girl. She was fun to write. But I was just writing myself, and I was like, I would just say this, and I just, so if you don't like Tia, then I would say that quite personally. I feel like so.
I'm so excited to read it, and I'm just so excited to know there is another book by you that's going to be out soon. Like I can just clutch this to myself, and reread it until it comes out. But I'm so excited, and I think that we're going to take just a couple. I think we have time for a couple of questions.
Oh,
I see some questions coming through on the chat. This is so exciting. Let me see.
Oops. Sorry. I was just typing for people to drop their questions in.
Oh, good.
Give me 1 second. Let me just finish this chat. Please drop your questions in the chat. We had a few come up. All right. The first one was for Abiola. Well, I guess you could also, Jennifer, you've done adult books and young adults. You could also kind of answer it too, because it's about working in 2 different age levels. Mm-hmm. So how difficult was it to come from kids books to YA books, Abiola?
Do you know what? It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I give myself a hard time. I was like, I can't do it. And I just kind of put myself in a box. But actually, it wasn't that hard because I read a lot of YA. So it really wasn't as hard as what I projected. And YA is fun because YA you can explore more than kids. Like in YA you can swear a bit more. You can kind of put some saucy bits in it and stuff. Whereas with kids' books, you're quite limited with the type of content you can say with the word count as well. So it was. I think jump from kids to YA is. I feel like that jump is quite easy. I think jump from kids to adult is like a whole different situation. I think I could work myself up to adults now. I've done YA. I think I can kind of creep into adults a bit now. But yeah, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. But I think I felt a bit in my new book, my editor was like, could we include a bit of a sex in it? And I went, oh, what? Oh my God. And I was horrified. I was like, oh no. But yeah, and I was like, I could try and write something almost off scene. But I felt very much like, oh, what if the kids read it? I was still in my kids mode. So yeah.
Do you have a process, Jennifer, from going from young adult books to adult books? And you go from fiction to nonfiction?
I do. And I think that, just to add on to what Abiola said, you know, I think one of the biggest differences for me moving from adult to young adult was that one, to realize like how smart the readers are, because there is no reason to, you know, like dumb anything down. There's absolutely no reason, because they're, I think, the smartest reading audience there is. They're so discerning. They can spot like, anything that's fake or that doesn't belong there a mile away. And also, I just feel like the reading audience is the most passionate reading audience there is. I just feel like they're just so warm, welcoming, excited, and like passionate about it. And it's just that's everything right there.
All right. All right. My next question is can also be to both. Since when you write another, oh, for Abiola, when will you write another YA book, or will you go back to children's books?
I've actually just written my third YA book, which I found really hard. I don't know why. It's not set at Christmas. I think that threw me off, not being at Christmas. And it's not dual POV. And I was like, oh, what is this book? I found it quite difficult, actually. But I've just finished it, so I need to go through it and wait for the dreaded edits. But I actually do have some kids' books coming up. And I do like writing kids' books as well. Hopefully they will come across the pond as well. Wink, wink. Who's listening? So hopefully it will come here. But yeah, I'm trying to kind of go between both a little bit, because I do enjoy doing both.
What's next for you, Jennifer?
I have a book that I just finished. It's with my editors right now, so I have yet to hear as well. Abiola, it's like, any day. But that one was one of the hard. It was YA, but it was very different for me, and it was one of the harder ones I've written. And I'm also working on another idea right now, which I'm excited.
Is there a new YA set in Indiana?
No. Can you believe that? Not yet.
I'm very disappointed right now.
I mean, I can do that though. So I'm sure it will happen again.
Okay. Then our next question is, what do you do to help you when you have writer's block? And you can both answer that. How do you get through writer's block if you have writer's block?
The only time I had writer's block was when my dad passed. I've never actually had writer's block. So when authors would say it, I'd be like, oh, that sounds awful. Kind of not relate. But then when I had it, I was like, wow, how do we do this? I mean, well, I don't know. I think my situation is a bit too extreme, but I guess what I did was I didn't give myself a hard time about it. And when it was time to write, so I was offered the Very Merry Murder Club came up before I got this book deal. So that was the first thing I wrote first, which I think was all right, because it was like middle grade. So it wasn't as hard, but it was a short story, which I'd never done before. So I was like, I don't know how to do this word count. But I think I just was like, let me just write it and go from there, and let me not judge myself if it's rubbish. And I think my edits were like, this is confusing, but I just got it done. So I think sometimes with writer's block is really just more of a mental thing, isn't it? It's just more of a mental block, and it's just sometimes you can work yourself up because you're like, I can't think of a good idea and it needs to be perfect. And sometimes it's like, just write it, and if it's rubbish, no one has to ever read that version, but just get it done and just kind of break that seal almost, and just trust yourself. You're way more talented than you think, and as humans we can really be quite hard on ourselves. So just go for it, and it's okay. That's my advice.
Brilliantly said. Yes.
What about any other advice, Jennifer?
I just to add to that, sometimes writer's block can just mean that you're trying to do something to the plot and the characters that they don't want to do, and they know better than you. So you have to, step back, look at it to see if that's really what needs to be happening in the story. And then, other times it's usually life stuff, I feel like, or just too many hours at the desk and your brain is tired. So I try to either step away from the computer for a little bit, or I am also a playlist girl, so I have playlists for my characters, playlists for my books, like playlists I like to write to, and I will put on maybe the playlist from the book I'm writing, and then listen to that, and inevitably, I can, even if it's rubbish, as Abiola says, I will write through it until I'm on the other side.
All right. Okay, I have one more question. Two actually. One was for Abiola. Who do you see? What celebrities do you see playing Trey, Ariel, and Blair in the movie?
Oh, not Blair. I get asked a lot. So with Trey, because I would love to keep it as UK as possible. So I like to have UK actors. The problem with that is there's not like that many UK black actors around. So that's the problem. So this is why I never have an answer. But with Trey, I would love it to be Damson Idris. He was in Snowfall. Because I think Damson is like, he's good, he's nice to look at. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what Trey and he's a good actor as well. With Ariel, I have no idea, if I'm totally honest. Maybe it's an undiscovered beauty that could be Ariel. And the same with Blair. But I think whoever plays Blair can also play Santi, so get like more money. So I think that's a good look for them. I think I'd just love it to be UK. I think that'd be just like really like a lovely UK romance. I think that'd be really cute.
All right. And then the last question is, would you write a Halloween horror story for 12 to 15-year-olds? That could be both of you.
Ooh. Do you know what? I love horror stuff. Like I love it so much. Like Saw 10 is coming out. No one wants to see it with me. Like I love horror. And I really want to write a horror. I'm like desperate to write one. I just need to think of a good idea. But do you know what? You know when you want to write something so bad that you can't write it? I feel like that's been my journey. But I really would love to write like a YA like horror, like a slasher thing, or like a middle grade spooky thing. I would love to do that. So I've been thinking about it. I haven't got anything yet, but I want to do that for sure. That's like my dream come true.
I would love to do that too. Like I love gothic horror too. Like something like yes.
All right. This is
and I love those weird YA books that I don't think I can write them, but like House of Hollow or like I feel it's me, like those weird books. It's like, what is going on here? Like I would love to write a book like that. I don't know if I have that in me. I think I'm too like perky, but I would love to write like a weird YA where people are like, what is happening? That's a book I want to write.
That would be amazing.
Right, last one. This is for both of you. What's one book you think everybody should be reading this year?
Oh.
This is my answer.
I'm just looking at yeah, and this one.
Yes, and that one. These two books.
I'm looking at my bookshelf like, what should I read?
That's so terrible. You have to be.
I also plug a book that I'm actually reading now, and I really like it. Thieves Gambit.
Oh,
I don't know who.
The Kelsey. I just saw that one. It's
great. Yeah, I got sent it
out like last week. It has a red cover. I know that one. Yeah. Okay, I will put that down.
It's really good. Do you know what? There's some books I've read. There's probably like 5 books I've read in my life that I've been like, oh, why didn't I think of this idea? One of them is Holding Up the Universe. I can't lie. The first time I finished that book, I was like, why didn't I think of this? I get this memo. And Thieves Gambit is another one. Like I'm reading, I'm just like, I could have thought of this. If I really thought hard enough, I could have done it. So yeah, there are some books I'm like very jealous of. That's a good book, but only for the holidays. Get that and Loving Winter Wonderland. That's what we're reading, guys.
All right, thank you, Abiola, and thank you, Jennifer. Enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. That was great.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to everyone who's here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Man, that one was you. That black woman.
Hey, don't forget to buy those books. We have Love in Winter Wonderland by Abiola Bello. If you order from us, we'll make sure you get a signed book plate. So please make sure you support these authors so that we can see them again. Bye.